Hello everyone and welcome to our 13th Quantum London webinar. Today we have another very exciting talk, which is in fact the first of a two-part series we are running this month in collaboration with Sia Partners. Across these two talks, we're looking to explore how business advantage can be created by quantum computing today and to shed some light on those questions that will no doubt be on the mind of executives and technologists across different sectors around what quantum computing might mean for their business and their industry. We'll be looking at commercially relevant applications, discussing topics such as hybrid quantum, and most excitingly, hearing from the experiences of our fantastic speakers and their own quantum journeys. For everyone who's new here, just a few words about Quantum London. We are essentially a group of professionals from different industries who are interested in understanding the business implications of quantum computing. We're set up primarily to help non-technical business professionals understand what quantum technology might mean for their industry and over what timelines it might have an impact. We do this by running webinars like the one tonight and also host some more informal sessions in a roundtable format where we discuss new things happening in the quantum world and also questions arising from any of our past events. We've also started to run community taught quantum computing coding sessions for those who want to get more hands-on. Links to all our social media channels where you'll be able to get more updates on our events are here on the right on this slide. So our speakers tonight are Markus Pflitsch, CEO and co-founder of Terra Quantum and a CERN Quantum Physicist. Markus speaks regularly on making it happen with quantum today. We've also got Martin Hofmann of Salesforce and previously Group CIO and Quantum Program Lead at Volkswagen. Markus brings experience of investing in quantum from a corporate perspective and the opportunity for the automotive industry and beyond. They'll be joined tonight by Karan Pinto from Sia Partners, who'll be facilitating the discussion. Sia Partners are focused on inventing the future with the power of quantum computing. They've recently launched a dedicated quantum lab that provides strategic and technology advisory services and supports the creation of application-specific business advantage across different sectors. During the session, there will also be the chance to ask questions in the chat on the right-hand side. I have with me here today Paolo, one of the co-founders of Quantum London, and we will be moderating questions throughout and we'll have time at the end to put your questions to our speakers tonight. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Karan, who'll start the session.
Thank you for that, and Quantum London for letting us do this in collaboration with Sia Partners. Hello to everybody joining us. Welcome. Thank you for dialing in from all over the world. I'll just set the scene and give you guys some context of what we're trying to do with this two-webinar series. Firstly, I work at Sia Partners Growth and Innovation. Our quantum lab helps quantum technology firms and corporates really drive forward and win with quantum computing. Over the past few years, I've really explored how quantum technology would actually play a role in driving and solving some of our most important and challenging industrial challenges. Over the past 2 years, what we've done at Sia Partners Growth and Innovation with Vishal Shetty and Charlie Curtis at our quantum labs is worked on some of the most fascinating combinatorial optimization problems, ranging from lift hoist optimization in construction to RNA codon optimization in drug discovery to collateral optimization with Markus and his team in financial services. And all in all, what we've learned is that we're just at the tip of the quantum iceberg, which is filled with possibility and potential that is completely untapped. And a big reason why it's untapped is this massive barrier in communication to simplifying what the true value is and how we can actually realize that value today. So with us today, we have two very, very fine gentlemen, Markus and Martin, who will help us bring this to life. Feel free to ask us questions at the end, but mostly we'll try to keep this as non-technical as possible to simplify it for you guys. So Markus, starting off with you, it'd be really nice if you could tell our audience a little bit about your quantum journey, how you came in touch with it, and also, explain to them how you would explain quantum to a child.
Thank you very much, Karan, for the nice introduction, and also the team from Quantum London. Very happy to speak tonight here in this group, and I know it's probably an audience which is already, very interested and educated in quantum. So nevertheless, I'll try to make kind of an intro into the topic. I actually, I'm passionate about quantum since I was 14. Actually, there was a book from John Gribbin called "In Search of Schrödinger's Cat," and this described the basic principles of quantum physics. And since then, I was really shocked because it has such disruptive meaning that since then, actually, I couldn't really leave the space. Although for some years, I was pursuing a business career and left quantum, left CERN, where I worked as a quantum physicist. But actually, a couple of years ago, I came back to the space actually and thought, now it's really time to commercialize on these groundbreaking principles. I mean, what are these principles? It's actually 3 principles here, which I would like to share with you, which actually also form the basis of what we are talking about today. So it is, every particle can also have a wave quality. So there is this wave-particle dualism. And then there is the superposition, right? So that Schrödinger cat in the shoebox, I will not go into detail here, but that cat obviously is dead and alive in the same moment unless we observe it. Yeah. So if a thing isn't observed, it behaves like a wave. If the perfect description of the status of the cat, if you don't observe it, is that it is a perfect overlay of all possible states. And then we have entanglement, right? So there is a pair which you can entangle, and then that pair, regardless of the distance between them, is exchanging information instantaneously. I mean, how can that happen? And so those 3 principles, which are now 100 years old, we know this since 100 years, but we now use it for the second quantum revolution. And, this translates directly how a quantum computer works, actually. How the exponential speed up of a quantum computer actually comes to play. If you would, I think we have a chart here which shows that, like Schrödinger's cat, a qubit has kind of all intermediary states, and not just like a classical bit 0 and 1, but it is the overlay of those states. And so it is in superposition. And then if you add kind of the next qubit, you have already 2 qubits process 4 classical states, and then 3 qubits process 8 classical states. And that explains the exponential speed up based on those fundamental principles. And I think that's just amazing that we create a machine now which shows exponential speed up, and that opens the door for so many groundbreaking applications in the near future. So that's kind of, you see, I'm still passionate about it. Those old principles, we bring to life with a modern quantum computer.
That's so interesting. Well, it's great because today we also have with Martin Hofmann. Martin, are you here? And Martin's done some great work at Volkswagen. So, next question off to Martin, where, Martin, could you share with us, what excites you most about this paradigm shifting technology, and could you bring that to life through your experience as a C-suite executive? And why should other kind of C-suite executives out there really care about this? And if you could contextualize that in terms of, how we think about business advantage and define that, that would be really great.
So first of all, thanks for inviting me. It's a super exciting event, and it's one of the few events that I'm happy to share my time and be with you. It's an honor to be with you guys. Thanks for setting it up. And what excites me, or what excited me about quantum computing, there are 2 things. One is if you believe in the Moore's law, and you've seen over the last couple of years how compute power has developed. You saw the last 3 or 4 years a slowdown in the increase of compute power. Is that a big deal? Maybe not in all instances. I can still send my email with the current processing power that I have today. But if you think about autonomous driving, things like this, optimizing real world problems like mobility, people moving around in a city, optimizing how people move. Suddenly you hit a threshold where the actual compute power gets the limiting factor. The compute time gets too long. So we were looking at something in 2015. We went out to Silicon Valley looking into some ideas how to crack this problem. And the second thing is, I'm a big fan of exponential technologies. I'm a big believer in it. And the problem with exponential technologies is you don't see it. The moment you see it, it passes you from behind and it overtakes you, right? Like biotech today, nanotechnology, and quantum computing is one of those exponential technologies. I mean, 5 years ago, everyone told me it's going to take 10 years. 2 years ago, Google told me it's going to take 10 years, right? And now, I mean, we're talking about 2 or 3 years. Suddenly, I mean, we see an acceleration that is really exciting, because now we're getting to a point where sooner or later, this technology, in my lifetime at least, will, and we talk about that later, will be available. So that's what's exciting. The industry challenges, I mean, I come from automotive. So my background is mobility, everything that moves, right, on a two-dimensional space. And when we thought about how to improve autonomous driving, routing is one of the most critical issues. And I had 2016, one of my biggest nightmares, on the street on a German Autobahn, and you don't drive 200 kilometers an hour, you're constantly in traffic jams. And then Google Map tells you, the nav system, leave the next exit. So you do it, and what happens? You're caught immediately in the next traffic jam because everyone else does the same thing, following your navigation system. So that led to the idea, how can we use an optimization approach and give every individual vehicle its individual routing and speed to basically dissolve traffic. And then we knew it's not going to be doable with a normal compute environment. So that's basically how we got into it.
That's so interesting, right? I mean, if you were a C-suite executive, right, you know, what is the motivations, or, you know, what makes you want to say, hey, let's go after quantum, or let's, you know, look at the power and potential of quantum, and let's invest in a program that explores this? Could you kind of run us through, you know, what's going through the mind there, and what are the fundamentals that, you know, support that investment or make it compelling?
I mean, there are probably two things to it. One is the strategic aspect. I mean, in my job as a group CIO, besides running operational infrastructure and systems, my second part of my job was make sure that the company is not going to miss any boat on technology, that we're not falling behind competition or anyone else. So by doing that, you have to deal with a technology like quantum computing. But then number two, you have to put it in some perspective, because no company is investing on a 10-year time scale into something with an unclear outcome. So you have to find the business relevant use cases where you think you can do magic by applying a new technology. And this was basically the key. We had to find prime number crunching is great for scientists. It's nothing for business people, right? So having an algorithm on 550 qubit, doing that, not exciting for business people, but applying that in the real world. So this is, I think, the key to it. Find areas in the real world where my mother would understand what the technology does, because she's experiencing it every single day. That was, in our case, the approach.
That's interesting, right? So if you could kind of talk us through, once that decision was made to go after, you know, quantum, go after that program, you guys did a program with Google, if I remember correctly, right? And, you know, how did that kind of look like? You know, what were the use cases you guys went after? What was the experience you had of working with them? Could you kind of touch on some of those aspects there?
Well, we signed two partnerships with D-Wave and Google. So okay. Because we wanted to learn, and keep in mind, we are not scientists. And I'll get to that point later. We are people trying to apply technology to solve an issue today and experiment with it, and also be willing to fail. So we knew most likely we're going to fail. So the first partnership was with D-Wave, and the project we did, the first one, we took data from Beijing, from taxis, from about 500 taxis, real data, a data set, And the question was, can we optimize their routing in a way that in downtown Beijing in the afternoon, where everyone goes to the airport, the specific route that we can give each one such a route that we dissolve a traffic jam even before it happens. It was a very theoretical test, and that went really well. So a year later, we did the Barcelona project. Barcelona is this worldwide congress on mobile communication once a year, a big traffic situation in the city. So the idea was, can we compute and optimize the location where taxis should be at any given time to pick up passengers, most likely. And we use mobile data from mobile phones of people, locating them anonymously, and then allocating the vehicles, an optimization problem. And the last one was in 2019 at Lisbon Web Summit, where we were steering buses through the city of Lisbon on Web Summit, controlled by a quantum computer, where we constantly recomputed the routing on a specific segment to avoid traffic jams. And that was the first time where my mother could sit in a bus and could say, oh my God, a quantum computer is running the bus. I'm exaggerating a little bit on purpose, but to portray, to get in a real world scenario. These were the three projects we did, plus battery optimization, material stimulation on battery technology. The electrochemical processes are really well suited to be, and that's what we did with Google. We also got a patent on this. VW has a patent on this, on a quantum algorithm to simulate electrochemical reactions in a battery using a quantum approach. So that was the second area we experienced. The third one is machine learning, using what we call quantum machine learning.
That's interesting, because in all that you speak about, the application is so important, right? Route optimization, battery optimization, the application is so important. So, for people who are like exploring quantum, looking at a program like with quantum, powered by quantum technologies, what would be your kind of key takeaways or learnings that you've had from doing it yourself, investing in it yourself, exploring those technology applications? What would be your key learnings and stuff that you'd like to share with us?
I mean, the first key learning experience was an interesting one. Suddenly, we had the whole world of science against us.
Yeah.
There are so many incredible scientists in the world working in quantum, and they all try to prove us wrong and unnecessary, whatever, which was great, because suddenly we got into discussion with the world of academia. But what I want to say is we were not, and Volkswagen was not and is not, a scientific organization. It's all about making something happen. And to do that, we had to train people. So we understood by trying to build, to solve a problem, describe it in a quantum way. You go very deep into problem analysis and problem solving. And because you have to, you develop an algorithm in a much different way than in a traditional compute environment, to dissect this problem, break it down in little chunks, because the D-Wave computer at that time was 1,000 qubit annealing, very limited, 2,000 qubits. We had to really break it down. And so the problem and solution understanding was tremendous. So we trained about 10 people, and with a very strong scientific background. And I would say in the automotive industry right now, they're probably the most experienced quantum people when it comes to describing something in a machine. So the investment, to be really honest, was not that significant, because you cannot hire 500 people to do that. You have to train and develop your own people, which was an amazing experience to see people grow in a very new field, the excitement, and then the ability to solve a problem. So I would say the investment is really limited. So you cannot say it's too expensive, I can do it. 10 people out of, we had 14,000 IT people, is like nothing. So that was one of the very interesting experiences we had.
Yeah, that's so interesting, right? Because I think the mixture between having a lot of technology or innovation optimism, some academic skepticism, or like profitability realism, because it needs to make money or be a valid investment to move it forward. I mean, considering all of this, I think on more like a skeptical front or challenge front, okay, could you potentially highlight for us what surprised you about, you know, this program that you ran, and what were some of the challenges that you'd highlight that other people should watch out for? And if, considering those two things, you think you should do or you would have done anything differently?
I mean, the critical thing, but this can be a big motivator. Everything is telling is not going to work. Everyone, academia, technology companies, everyone is telling you what you try to do because the technology is so new, it's not going to work. So it's creating frustration on the one hand, but also a huge motivator to prove to the world you can do it. This is one thing. The second thing is you have to find areas where you can solve a real world issue that people understand. Otherwise, it's a fantasy. It's a pink elephant flying through the sky that might be grounded in 10 years. So it has to be. We had to find the right narratives and problems to solve that can be done today. And I'm really advising to do that, to start today, understand how to frame problems and solve them in a quantum kind of environment today. And with a small team, get help from the really great companies out there that can help build your competency, and then grow over time into the emerging technology of quantum chips. And Markus is going to talk about it later on. Why he and I believe the time is now to invest in it.
I mean, that's fascinating. Well, thank you so much for your thoughts on, you know, taking us through the work that you did at Volkswagen and sharing all those lessons that you had, Martin. I think what we do now is move over to Markus, okay, who'll now help us bring this to life from a quantum technology perspective, right? Markus, if you could, you know, start touching on, you know, how someone who's a corporate looking to start on their quantum journey can start creating this application-specific business advantage that Martin's hit upon. If you could kind of bring that to life for us a bit, that would be great.
Yes, and I think it's and Martin mentioned it very nicely. I think you know, with Volkswagen being an early adopter in using quantum technology for also real life use cases, and I think that is actually the challenge you have to tackle if you know, you are kind of a quantum tech company and you want to you know, you want to serve customers with quantum applications. So
sorry, Markus. I think you need to just show us your face. I think you're hidden.
Sorry. But actually, you know, 80% of the corporates say we have to get started with quantum, but we don't really know how to do that. So we lack the talent. We don't have the, let's say, the quantum physicists, the quantum engineers in-house, and we don't have any hardware to deploy it on. Yeah. So I think if you you have to take away those hurdles for corporates, and that's why we have created actually an end-to-end quantum as a service platform, which lowers the entrance barriers for corporates as much as you can. Yeah. So with us, we go into these corporates, we look on the use cases which they run on traditional IT infrastructure today, but which are so complex or are so data intensive that they come to certain performance thresholds, but would love to see a performance advantage, a speed up of their application. These are the right use cases. This is what you have to talk about with corporates. And then we come in with our quantum physicists and look at that use case and analyze whether we can transform it and migrate it into a quantum algorithm. Yeah, and that's today kind of a hardcore quantum physicist work, and that's, I think, where, you know, the quantum techs have to be enablers, because most of the corporates don't have that talent in-house yet. But the next crucial thing is also that you are able to deploy that algorithm. Yeah, because if you show a corporate something which delivers a solution in a few years' time, okay, we all know what the prioritization will be. They will look again into it in a few years' time. But we are totally convinced that there are use cases which deliver today a business advantage if you migrate it into the quantum world, that you have to select the use cases carefully, develop the algorithm, but also bring a machine where you can deploy it and see the quantum performance advantage. Yeah, how do we do that? We do that, and that, if I may say, will take 1-2 minutes, because we have to explain we are in the current era of quantum computing. It's the so-called NISQ area. It's a noisy intermediate scale quantum computers where the qubits which are offered are noisy. You have to error correct for them. So the performance is still too low in many cases to show a real business advantage if you deploy it on these machines. That's why we think in the NISQ era, but also for the longer run, the combination of high performance computing and quantum computing, hybrid quantum computing, is the key, yeah, to enable corporates to unleash the potential of quantum already today. And that's why we have created a platform, the QMware suite, which delivers based on HPC virtualized qubits. And those qubits are high performant. They don't have any errors or noise. And we select use cases which, if we deploy it on the QMware machine, deliver a performance advantage compared to the old solution. And I think that's what you have to focus on, because one thing is lowering the entrance barriers for corporates to deploy quantum applications, but the second is also not just offering them an intellectual playground. This is nice, but you have to talk. You have to survive this discussion also with the CFO, yeah, to tell him, look, you know, you get a P&L impact, a positive P&L impact by applying quantum. And there are use cases today where you exactly have that, and that's where we have to focus on to show the quantum potential now.
That's brilliant, right? I mean, if you could touch upon what makes your approach so unique and special, Markus, a bit more. You know, we know it's the hybrid quantum computing way of doing things that creates advantage today, commercially attractive. If you could hit on a little bit more on, like, you know, what makes it special under the hood, that'd be great.
Yeah. I mean, if you get a corporate started to work on migrating use cases into the quantum space, yeah, I think you have to make sure that this work is that you don't have to repeat it. So what does that mean? I mean, you have to develop something which is more or less quantum hardware agnostic, yeah, because we are at an early stage of this technology. We don't know yet who will be the winner. Is it an ion trap base? Is it on photonics? Is it superconducting? So it might be various approaches which will work out, but we don't know yet. So whatever you do on the software, on the application layer, in the quantum algorithm design, should be developed to stay. And that challenge we meet by using a hybrid quantum simulator, in our case with 40 qubits without noise, and deploying those algorithms on that machine. And this delivers value. And I hope we talk about some real life use cases where I can demonstrate the actual, business impact of these. But the crucial thing with our platform is that in the moment, in the NISQ era, it uses the advantages of virtualizing qubits by HPC, high performance computing architecture, composed in a kind of IP relevant way, how you access the memory and stuff like this. But it's an architectural setup where we can integrate true QPUs, quantum processors, as soon as they become available and are more mature and powerful. So if we will have let's say 60, 70, 80, whatever, a true QPU from our development or from a third party, we'll integrate it into our machine. But the software solutions we have developed with the customer stays there. It just benefits from the enhanced performance of the QMware machine.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. I'll just say to our audience, right, we've in the next session, we'll dive deeper into a real use case around collateral optimization with Vishal and Stephen, where we've actually been able to prove a 6 basis point improvement for the collateral optimization problem. And some of the special sauce under Markus's technology at Terra Quantum and QMWare has made that happen. Markus, do you want to touch a little bit upon, how this kind of compares to specific use cases like we're sharing on the screen right now? Do you want to touch on that a bit?
Yes, absolutely. Before I, jump into these examples of use cases, let me add, because I think we have probably a large majority of participants also from Europe, and that there is a special kind of sensitivity on data protection, IP security and stuff like this, a growing sensitivity. That's actually why the QMware cloud we make accessible via the cloud, so which means that's also a low entrance barrier for corporates to use it, but it is completely GDPR compliant and Gaia X compatible, so that we take into consideration the growing concerns of corporates where to deploy actually their data. And I think that is a very crucial mission critical point for success, because we have to limit entrance barriers and hesitations of corporates to enter the quantum space. I just wanted to add that. But now,
could you touch on your stance on IP as well, please? Like, when a corporate works with you, where does the IP sit? Could you touch on that, please?
Yes, absolutely. So we have clients where we come in with a certain use case where we have already developed a quantum algorithm and we own the IP and we license it out. But we are very flexible, and we do that all the time, to look at corporates' specific use cases and develop the algorithm, so to say, together with them. In that case, kind of the IP is kind of a joint approach, joint development. But when a client has already its own IP and just wants to execute and run it on our machine, it of course sits with him. All the data sits with him. It's completely sandboxed. So it's completely secure and the data is protected, so we can't look into it. And I think that is also crucial. The corporates must feel completely secure in that environment to deploy their use cases. And that will kind of trigger and accelerate innovation. Like these use cases you see here, unfortunately, they are probably a little small, but I would just like to allude to it, because a lot of people still think there aren't so many use cases out there which deliver real value add. You, Karan, mentioned one for the investment banking space, on collateral optimization, which is delivering real, true P&L impact today. But there are much more. So we have developed one algorithm for linear algebra and differential equations. That is something you can use for stochastic analysis. You can use it for fraud detection or real-time fingerprinting. And that is stuff which you can actually execute in a better way. You see a quantum enhancement, a quantum advantage compared to classical solutions. Same is true on an algorithm for combinational optimization, which is actually suited for large-scale circuit design if you want to place a lot of transistors on a single chip. Or another example on hybrid quantum neural networks, where we have developed an algorithm which is suited for better image recognition. And if you have such a kind of quantum algorithm developed, you have the core, you can deploy it on various use cases in different industries. So that one, image recognition, is suited for autonomous driving, so addressing the automotive industry. You can use it in robotics. You can use it in medical diagnostics. So that's the power of those quantum algorithms, that once you have it, you can deploy it for various use cases. And all those examples here, which I have shown as just a selection, they show quantum advantage deployed, e.g. on our machine, on the QMware machine, already today. So you will have better results if you use these quantum algorithms than sticking with your classical solution. And that is fantastic. So that means, you can help corporates to have a business advantage and not just kind of do a scientific approach and show them kind of intellectually what will be possible in the future.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, keeping track of time here. What I'm going to do is thank you very much, Markus, for all of that. I think definitely for complex, challenging problems, that's use cases across domains, where working together with you, we've seen that picking the right use case that is commercially attractive and then proving the advantage against the classical or the existing solution is so powerful, and that turns heads and that makes it happen. And thank you so much for also hitting on the reservations that everybody comes across in terms of data security and IP, which is so important when you're looking to in some way productionize some of these applications and solutions. What I'll do is I'll invite Martin back here. Martin, could you join us again, please? For the last kind of 5 minutes, what I want to do is really get your advice on how we can start making it happen. We've touched upon what's possible, your quantum journeys, applications out there, specifics about the technology and the advantage that the technology can create. But now, if we want to make it happen with quantum today, starting off with Martin, what would be your advice to a corporate saying, hey, let's move ahead and get started with quantum? What would be your message?
I can't switch my camera on, so I just try to. We are only limited to 3, right? So, okay, great. So I think a couple of things. The first thing is I would get some help. And there are great companies out there that can help. And I'm not affiliated with Sia Partners, but they are one of them, for example, that I would talk to and explore the possibilities. What are the right use cases? And that's number one. The second thing is I also would start to create my own capabilities and select 1 or 2 or 3 people in the organization. So by the way, by doing that, you're not over-investing at all. You're talking about 2, 3, or 4 people that you let work with companies like Terra Quantum to really understand and learn how to frame a problem the quantum way and how to develop an algorithm and deploy it. And you learn as you go. The more you learn, the better you get a feeling of what are the specific use cases of your own business. I mean, if you're a chemical company, the use cases that you would find are obviously completely different than the one of an airline. At the same time, an airline has also an optimization problem, a logistics problem, like a chemical company. So what I'm saying is suddenly you get really connected into the world of quantum, and there's a very, very active community out there. So let me just summarize. Step 1 is find someone to start with, to help you kickstart. Identify business critical small problems that are relevant, really relevant, not solving world hunger, but that are relevant to that business. Train your own people and find a company to work with, like Markus, as one example, to deploy quickly and demonstrate that the value is there right now.
That's brilliant. Thank you for that, Martin. And now back to Markus for making it happen, right? Markus, I think probably almost from a skeptical lens here to really push you. Okay, there's a lot of people who doubt the readiness of quantum as a whole, who doubt the potential of it compared to classical. What would be your message to people who are skeptical about the potential of quantum for applications that they have today or applications that they're looking to tackle tomorrow?
Yes, I think that is a very fair and good question because we also have, of course, a responsibility. I mean, being a representative of the emerging quantum tech industry, there is a lot of hype as well, in kind of any dimension, and we have to be responsible for what we say. In a way, what we say we have to deliver. We shouldn't overpromise and underdeliver. We should do the opposite. So therefore, we have to be cautious in what we phrase, what we can do. But there are, and that's the good message, there are use cases which deliver business value already today. That's a great thing. Not talking about other areas where you have to where you do have a real quantum market already today. I mean, quantum cryptography, for instance. I mean, a company who deals with confidential data should be post-quantum secure already today, not tomorrow, but that's another topic. So I understand kind of the skepticism which is out there, and kind of that's why you have to carefully select these use cases. And I also do understand hesitations to invest big time into quantum, into people and hardware and so on as a corporate. But that's why, you know, if you, e.g., work with us, and I'm kind of pass pro toto, you can select use cases, do your software development work, but then you have to be careful to live with the uncertainty which the hardware side still has, yeah? As we do not know which hardware typology will win. You should do your software work should be hardware agnostic, yeah? So watch out that what you do on the software side, the applications you deliver run on kind of more or less all QPUs in the future. That is important. And that's why also we have selected that solution. We come in, bring our own people who do the quantum algorithm design work, and then we bring our own machine, offer it very easy to access via the cloud, and based on an architectural setup where whatever you have delivered will survive. You can run it now on your 40 qubits, but you can also run it in the future once we integrate a true QPU. It will be a continuous solution, and therefore I think if you select that kind of approach, you will benefit good things from quantum already now, and that is, I think, where we have to focus on to kind of kickstart the broader usage of quantum technology applications.
That's brilliant. You know, thank you so much for that, Markus. I think, you know, just for our audience here, before we start taking questions, I thought I'll just summarize the key takeaways for you. Yeah. So I think, you know, one is definitely business advantage powered by quantum technologies for specific high value applications is very much possible today. Two, hybrid quantum computing, like what Markus has touched upon, can really help create this advantage by proving that quantum can outperform classical with real results to compare for it. And then thirdly, investing today will really help you realize this untapped potential of this immense possibilities in the quantum world, and definitely accelerates your path towards true quantum computing when the time is right. Thank you very much, Martin and Markus. If you could please come back on camera, and I think, you know, it'd be a good time for us to take some questions as well.
Thank you, Karan. Thank you, Martin and Markus. That was a fascinating discussion, and we've learned so much already. There's a few questions.
Will you be sending the questions our way?
Yes, I'll be reading out some questions to you, and that you can answer. So we've got a few questions in the chat relating to the use cases, specifically around quantum machine learning, and interest around what are the use cases for quantum machine learning in general, and in, for example, the automotive industry. One of our audience members would like to know.
I mean, I can.
Sorry.
Karan, you hear us?
I think we lost it for that. Was it what are the use cases for quantum machine learning? Is that right, in automotive?
Yes, that's correct. Can you hear me, Karan?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. You should ask VW to go now into more details, but the thing that I can say is all around autonomous driving, the work that has been done and is ongoing is on the training side of machine learning algorithms, how to use quantum computers to accelerate training, especially pathfinding, where the vehicle has to sort out from sensor data predictive the best path forward out of different scenarios. So this is where a lot of work is being done, how quantum computing could potentially speed up the entire training process. So that's one critical area, but again, you should ask VW or the other automotive companies for more details.
Yeah, I think I can add to that as well. So I think there's a couple of other use cases, right? So firstly, one that would be really game changing would be computational fluid dynamics. You know, the ability to solve nonlinear probability differential equations. That would be really, really big. Second is job scheduling within the production plant, and robot motion planning as well within the production plant. Really, really big there. Third, genetic design. Just being able to define what the function needs to be and then let form take its own shape. Really big. I think fourth would be the obvious one, which Martin has hit upon again and again, which is land route optimization. Very, very big. So I think the fifth one would probably be in the EV space, battery storage optimization, charging infrastructure optimization. There's so many. Yeah.
And you see that you can also use them in other, so the fluid dynamics thing. We are working with a chemical company on that topic. So it's really a mission critical topic, right? And it's a very good sign that more and more corporates, really tackle these mission critical business applications to explore how they can create a quantum performance advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, a good way to think about it is just think of, some of the machine learning applications we have today for, like, example, SVM or support vector machines, and then think of how quantum could turbocharge some of those applications, and then think of what you could do completely anew with quantum and machine learning together. And I think that's a realm of thought we've not yet in some way realized.
We've got a question from Berend who asks, does quantum computing have a potential energy advantage? Hi, Karan, can you hear me? I think there might be a delay. So I think Karan might have a delay on the audio, but I'll go on with the question. So Berend asks, does quantum computing have a potential energy advantage? And I think what that's alluding to is whether quantum computing is more energy efficient than high performance computing currently, and are there any advantages to using that for certain problems?
I mean, I can start probably. It's a very difficult question, to really look kind of through the whole value chain and then kind of judge on that question. But I would say there are certain ingredients which hint to the fact that it should be more energy efficient, because, for instance, if you have a portfolio optimization, I mean, I could go back to the collateral optimization case, and if you run a simulation kind of in a fewer amount of time, if you take kind of just 10 minutes instead of an hour, how the machine runs, it's of course better, because you get the result in a fewer time, and that of course results in lower energy consumption. So I would say a strong yes that quantum computing solutions will be more energy efficient. I mean, on the long end, of course, you have to see, you will tackle much more complex problems in the future with a quantum computer, and of course that then again consumes energy, but you tackle completely new spaces, right? If you have a real kind of comparable if you compare it, then I think quantum computing is more energy efficient.
And Markus, I think where that question stems from, and this has been asked in previous webinars, is people are visualizing these sort of big images we see from D-Wave and IBM of incredibly complicated looking pieces of hardware operating close to absolute zero, and they have these visions that maybe the amount of electricity to make them run is a problem. And we're hearing, over the last few weeks about how, Bitcoin mining is going to destroy the planet because of its energy consumption, etc. I think what you're saying is that, even though the quantum computer may use a reasonable amount of power because it's got to cool and everything, actually the volume of what it's doing will more than make up for the fact that it needs cooling to absolute zero, etc.
I would say so, because I mean, if you, and now we talk long-term future, right? I mean, if we have a true universal quantum, we'll be able to solve problems which current HPCs take longer than the age of the universe, right? A true universal quantum machine will do that in kind of a second, right? So obviously, it's much more energy efficient, right? And I think the current status of the industry, that you have these big, if you take the superconducting qubits, right, and you have that energy which you need to cool it down and stuff like this. I mean, we are in an early stage of that hardware development. This will progress so dynamically and will get better, so that I think we'll get much more efficient here as well. But
yeah. And that moves actually nicely to another question that's come up, which is in terms of use cases, there's a sort of a feeling that if we can start to identify how quantum or hybrid quantum can solve some of the climate change challenges, then that becomes a use case that feels very appealing to everyone to be talking about. So I wonder if sort of one or two of you might want to share some of those that you're talking about with clients, or you've heard people speak about.
Yeah, I can probably take that. So I'll highlight three. Okay, one, conservation planning, humongous. Natural reserve conservation planning is a one-to-one kind of graph coloring problem. If you think about it in terms of computation complexity, it's a problem that's solved by a lot of these natural reserves that are looking to make sure that, you know, we have the right level of care for greenery in those spaces. So that's number one. Number two is the one which is kind of very famous. It's around nitrogen fixation. That's probably the most famous one. You can find a lot of detail on that, but that's around how can you accelerate catalysis, which would be game changing to the whole chemical industry as a whole, and help with climate change. And then the third one, which I'd bring to life, which probably not many people have heard about, is kind of, you know, we did some work around steel furnace burner optimization, which is fascinating, which is, you know, like 4% of the material used in steel manufacturing is wasted just because of the wrong temperature at which the different burners in a steel optimization furnace is. Again, that's a multi-dimensional, multi-domain combinatorial optimization problem. So I think the list just will continue from a sustainability perspective. But if you just look at the mental model for it, right, we want to solve really complex problems at real world scale. We just want to do them faster at a greater level of accuracy or better answers. And that's technically everything can fit into that mental model, right? And sustainability is a big part of that.
Perfect, thank you. And then the final question from me, and I'll hand back to Anahita, is a different one, which comes back to this topic of engaging with management and helping, you know, people understand why they need to be quantum ready, why hybrid quantum is relevant for them right now. If there's someone either listening live or to this recording who is not in a position to actually drive the discussion directly, it's not their area of responsibility, or they don't you know, sit in the right department or whatever, what advice would you have to them to try and get the right people interested and excited, rather than them sort of risking just saying, hey, there's this cool geeky thing, I don't know how to articulate it? Any sort of advice to those people?
First of all, I think not making a big thing out of it. The moment this topic quantum computing is put on this level of magic, and you immediately get, especially in times right now where after COVID, many companies are cash strapped and trying to reduce costs at any time. This is not probably fitting well into the current debate. However, I mean, I think the right people to approach, and this is what I'm seeing companies also I'm befriended with, is on the CTO, CIO level, people who have a strong computer science background and who can relate to it, and with them together find a very small solvable problem to experiment and keep it on an experimental level. not overcommitting and making clear this is an experiment. We take a problem of our company, a small one, and try to solve it. So to really, I would say, to play it really down and not making it big. And let success, if it comes, then speak for it. So if you solve a problem that then you can demonstrate, suddenly you see how upper level management up to the CEO gets suddenly excited because he sees one of his own problems, very small, but solved. So I think the big mistake is to blow it up and make a big elephant out of it, because expectations will go through the roof, and I think frustrations will be the result. So that's my advice.
Yeah,
I would support that strongly, and from kind of an entrepreneurial perspective, one has to be cautious. We are of course excited and passionate to say, we have a quantum advantage. We solved it on the quantum computer. For an industry user, this is not kind of the first priority, right? If you tell him I have a solution which is much better and gives you a better performance for lower cost, that is great. I mean, regardless on kind of what technology you do that. So therefore, we are strong believers in the hybrid approach, meaning combine classical HPC architecture, companies are used to it, with quantum, so that you get a better combined result, because that is what counts.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I think, this is what we're doing all the time, so come talk to us. But the key message is be application specific and outcome driven. And sometimes you might not even need to say quantum. If it's creating a 40% advantage or a 6 basis point advantage, everybody's heads will turn and they'll be like, okay, now let's take you seriously. So be application specific and outcome driven. Cool.
Perfect. Thank you. Anna, any final questions?
I think there is one question here in the chat that I think is very pertinent, asking, do you think quantum can replace current computers in the future? And I think we've been touching on this around the hybrid approach. A very brief answer from all of you.
I can start. I think it will not replace it. You will always intelligently combine it. We have supercomputers today. We still have a personal computer, right? The personal computer will stay. So we'll have HPC structures and quantum computers working together. That's my take on it.
Thank you very much. Sorry, go on, Karan.
Yeah, I think the last thing to add there is, I agree with Markus, right? In simple words, just the hardest part of your application or the most complex part will be outsourced to a quantum computer or quantum approach. And the hybrid way is definitely the way forward. And that's something that should be taken very, very seriously.
Thank you very much, all. I'll hand over to Paula now for some closing comments.
Brilliant, thank you, Anahita. So just before I say a final thank you, if maybe I can just briefly update the community on what's coming up over the coming weeks. So the first thing to say is, as mentioned at the beginning, this is the first of two similar events. So in 2 weeks' time, on Wednesday the 21st, we will have part 2 of this. We'd be delighted to have people back to continue this discussion from a slightly different angle, and that will be, I think, quite engaging, and certainly some of what we can talk about between now and then on the various social media channels will allow an even richer conversation than the excellent one we had today. On Monday the 26th, quantum computing for Chief Information Security Officers. So we very specifically stayed away from a long conversation about whether quantum computing means the end of encryption, and the need for post-quantum security. That wasn't the intent of today, and I'm glad we managed to avoid it. It is, however, so important for certain other roles. So on Monday the 26th, we'll be talking about that. If you have any Chief Information Security Officers, ask them if they're aware of these risks. They'll almost certainly say not really, so send them our way on the 26th. And then on the 29th, we'll be talking about diversity within the quantum computing space, a great talk there from a number of speakers. There will also be dates still to be fixed. Our Quantum Stammtisch event, where we have open discussion and can answer sort of basic questions people may have, and then obviously the Quantum London coding community for those who are taking the next step and actually learning to code. That's developing very well, and the team is actually working on a specific use case now rather than just generically learning, and they would love to have new people join that community. So as we hit 7 o'clock in the UK, 8 o'clock in Europe, I'd just like to wrap up by saying absolutely huge thanks to Martin, to Markus, and to Karan for their time today. I think it's amazing with high quality speakers like this how much we're able to cover in just 60 minutes. So really appreciate your time, sharing your experiences, the specific anecdotes. Yeah, there's been an awful lot of general discussion on this topic over the months and years, and it's now that it gets very specific that it's useful for people to allow them to understand what they and their companies need to do next. And the three of you have done an excellent job around that. So thank you very much for your time. Look forward to seeing some of you back in 2 weeks at the next event, and much appreciated for your input. Thank you and good night.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.